This episode contains spoilers about the first 2 seasons of Severance.
Hi, I'm Ketaki.
And I'm Sanaya.
And we're Thinking People. Today, we're thinking about what makes Severance the TV show of the 2020s. We talk about what sets the show apart from other prestige TV and the questions that it poses about our lives. What is work, who we are, and how we perform our different selves.
Life moves fast. Tune in to think about it.
Hello. Today, we want to talk about Severance. I was actually going to open with, I was going to ask you if you are your innie or your outie right now. And looking at you right now, it seems like you are still your innie.
Yeah. I went for a work event today, got back home around 7:30 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still wearing my work event clothes. So yeah, I guess I'm my innie. So there's this interesting thing as we were preparing for this episode that I ended up thinking about. So I've recently begun professional coaching, and one of the insights from my coach was that you should do like something ritualistic and symbolic to end your workday, to mark the barrier between your work hours and your rest of your life hours. And, I was like, okay, oh my God, what can that be? And I think before work from home, it used to be a commute. So now you have to think of new shit to do, right? And for me, I decided that I will take a shower at the end of the workday to mark the end of the workday. So I have not showered. So therefore, I'm still my innie. And I realized that this is essentially the dolly zoom thing that happens when they go up and down the elevators in Severance. And then the elevator goes ding. So you need a ding in your real life to give you work-life balance, basically.
I don't even know what to say to that. I don't even know what to say. It's also sad. We are in such late stage of capitalism that we can't even switch off from work anymore. Like, it's so hard to do that. And I really feel like it has a lot to do with like technology and being always on and all of those things as well. But anyway, I think that's a good starting off point to thinking about Severance, because I think, there is so much to unpack when it comes to this show, but from the little bit, like before I had watched the show, I knew a little bit about the concept, and I was like, okay, this is a show that is rooted or is inspired by the theme or the idea of work-life balance.
Mm-hmm.
And more specifically, like work-life balance as we understand it today and what that means to us today. And I think it's sort of like, that is kind of like the starting off point for this show, and then it sort of launches into and creates this entirely new world that, it takes this idea and then I think goes to an extreme, right? And I guess like a good way to start this episode would be to like ask the question, what is work-life balance according to Severance?
So I think for Severance, the show's creators and the story, work-life balance is very literal, right? You are literally a different person when you go to work, and you have no memories of your personal life, your quote-unquote personal life when you're at work, and your work life when you're away from work. So it's that the perfect compartmentalization or separation of work and life is what Lumen Industries puts forward as its version of work-life balance, which obviously is a front for to be determined agendum, right? But that's where we start off. And I feel like it is the central hook for a lot of people as well. Like, can you imagine a world where your work and your life are like perfectly split and your work life doesn't spill into your regular life and your personal life doesn't spill into your work. So I think that it's like this almost cartoonish rendering of what we are striving towards every
Yeah.
single day.
Yeah.
And it's almost absurdist. I think Severance has a very dramatic veneer, but it's actually a very, I think, darkly funny show. So yeah, I think it's that literal compartmentalization that throws into sharp relief the ridiculousness of work.
Yeah. I think it's a workplace comedy, but in a sense. But like I was thinking about this question, and I think I first started thinking about like what are the origins of the idea of like work-life balance in outside of Severance, like in our life. And I looked it up a little bit, and of course like it's tied to like theories of socialism and the idea of like labor and people wanting
getting into the Marxist part of this episode. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
but it's essentially kind of the origins of like not work-life balance as we know it today, but the origins of this idea of like break or rest from work is like early 1770s. Rich, Welsh industrialist is like, the demands of like labor are too demanding. So like we need an 8-hour work day, we need 8 hours of recreation, 8 hours of rest, and that's like sort of where it originates. But then the work-life balance, as we come to understand it, actually sort of like started in the 1980s when women joined the workforce, and then they really needed time to to dedicate to the house, because obviously like men are not helping back home, and it sort of like is travels from there to like present day, which is basically that of course it's like you are balancing your life from work, and like especially during COVID, there was this whole idea of like what you do at work is not who you are is what you do outside of work, or like those are like two different aspects of who you are. But essentially the common thread between all of this is that like work-life balance, or the idea, the central ethos of work-life balance is to try and think of a way to cope from the demands of work or labor. Essentially it's a coping mechanism, because what is true in this world that we live in is work. We all have to work, we have to do it. And because we have to work, and because work is so demanding, and there are forces beyond our control that interplay with that, we have to figure out a way to cope. And I think that takes like a variety of different meanings through history. But the thing about Severance that is so interesting is that it flips it. And in the world of Severance, at least in the beginning, like work is the way to cope with life.
Yeah.
And that's why these people are choosing to get severed.
Yeah. No, so I think that's exactly right. I feel like I think work-life balance when it comes to Severance is like lumen marketing, employer marketing, right? Like that's the way in which they're getting people to sign up for the severance procedure. But I do think that this idea of like perfect separation or severance or work-life balance is masking that deeper philosophical question that the show then very gradually and fantastically reveals through these 2 seasons is what does it mean? Like, who are we? Number one is one of the questions, but also what makes a life, right? Like, what role does work play in that life? Is the person on the inside whose entire life is work and does not have a life outside of work, is that a real life worth preserving? And this larger question of, can we really escape pain, right?
Yeah.
Like whether that pain is something in your personal life, like Mark Scout, who wants to escape it and wants to just shut his brain off for 8 hours every day. What does that mean for his actual life? Like, what space does that pain have in his actual life if he's choosing to live less of it, right? And secondly, I think, as you said, that I feel like Severance becomes wider than just the work part of things, right? Like in later seasons, but Severance kind of expands into this larger idea of what are the painful parts of life? Can we actually escape it? Like, I don't want to go to a dentist. I don't want to, experience turbulence in a plane because I'm scared of flying. I don't want to give birth because actual labor, while
Yeah.
delivering a child is is too painful to imagine. So can I sever myself and have a different version of me go through all of that? And essentially, I guess, like, I end up asking myself that question. I end up asking myself two questions. Do I view work as pain? Is that something I want to escape? And number two, is a version of a life where I'm like constantly trying to escape that pain. Like, what is that life, right? So I feel like that's what Severance then like kind of flips it.
Yeah.
The second season of saying that, oh, what is the value or the worth of your innie, or like this life that you live for 8 hours every day?
Yeah. I mean, so much to unpack there, right? Like,
Yeah.
I would say that in Severance, like what you just said, you said it is work pain for me. So in the real world, we're thinking about, is work inherently painful?
Yeah.
And is work the thing that's causing us pain? So we need life to balance it out. In Severance, obviously there are actual philosophies that unpack or think about this. But in Severance, the baseline assumption is that life equal pain, right? Life is painful. And then it sort of takes that whole idea of like professionalism, which is essentially, work for work's sake, wherein if you are a professional, you are someone who is like devoid of emotion. You leave all of those emotions, all of those feelings, everything, all the baggage you carry from your real life at home, and you come into work and you are a different person. You have to be that person in order to survive and in order to perform at work. And I think that is sort of the space within which like Severance exists, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So this is what like work-life balance is according to Severance. But what is the workplace according to, like, because there's so much to unpack, because as you're saying this also, like, my head is just like flooding with thoughts. But we've established what work-life balance, or at least at the beginning of the show, what Severance thinks what work-life balance is, or what it tells us work-life balance is. But how does it project the idea of work, right? Because again, when you start watching the show, you're like, this is a satire about work. Which is, and the thing that I love about the show is that everything that you claim, everything that you say is like, yeah, this is what the show is about, is also what it's not about. It's about something else entirely as well.
Yeah. There are always more layers.
Exactly.
Like, every time you think you've gotten to the bottom of something, you're like, no, there are 10 more layers and we have to keep digging.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but as a satirizing the workplace, I feel like I feel like Ben Stiller and like Dan Erickson are these like ethnographers who have like looked at an office space and been like, what is this weird behavior? What are these strange customs? And as only outsiders could, in Ben Stiller's case, as an outsider, of course, Dan Erickson's actual humdrum like work life inspired much of this. But I think it's such a cutting critique of things that we normalize in like corporate work culture.
Yeah.
Right from like icebreakers that we have at like retreats, like that game that they play with the ball where you have to share,
the ball around.
You have to share a fact about yourself. Like, who among us has not sat at an icebreaker and had to think of a fact that is both interesting, both interesting, but also work appropriate, but also, communicates to your teammates that, I'm a quirky, fun person. I mean, you have to have this prepared when you go into an icebreaker session. It is icebreakers are designed to do nothing other than, freeze over another layer of water over the ice, right? So from the icebreakers to, I think, even the focus on wellness, which is like a new thing, right?
Mental
that workplaces do, that, we care a lot about your mental health, only insofar as you perform better for us, that like thinly veiled attack on your actual mental well-being. We really care about you.
Yeah.
So what can
Yeah.
we do to help you perform more for us?
Yeah. It's the hollowness of corporate culture that it depicts so beautifully, I think. Like, even, and I think the embodiment of that is like is Milchik.
Yeah.
Because he is like, he does it so well, like truly, where he comes into the workplace and he's like, today I have to motivate these team members, so I'm going to do it in this fashion, and everyone that's watching the show can see right through him because he is putting on an act. And it's exactly that, right, where it's like, it's so shallow. Like, none of these exchanges are real. They're extremely inauthentic. And to someone who, like, as you're watching this, you're like, oh, this is a workplace comedy to me because I experienced this and I have experienced this. And Ben Stiller has like not experienced this and has probably seen this from the outside and is like, that is freaking hilarious. And that's sort of like the angle with which work culture is being projected to us, right? And like everything from like even the achievements, right? Like how shallow it seems that like someone has achieved something and then they're like, yeah, let's give you a waffle party or let's do like a dance party, and it's also fake and like put on, and you have to perform it because within that context, everybody, maybe they're not inherently buying into it, but is performing that they are, right? And so essentially,
I actually think that they know that this is ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly.
But they still feel good about it. Like, the reward is still a reward. Like, you want the waffle party. You want the deviled eggs are coveted as fuck, right? That's what Dylan said. Like, he really feels proud of all of those things. And when Helly completes that file and has her music dance experience, she, like, you can see that she's feeling good about herself no matter how much a skeptic she was in the beginning. And that is the power of an organization.
Yeah.
With its employee handbook and its policies and the world that it creates, that you can be as much of a skeptic as you are in your outside life. You can go to, like, you can criticize your work all you want, but you're coming in the next day.
Exactly.
Or if, like, even for Milchik, right, you can see that he is that person in middle management who is doing a lot of the dirty work and is conflicted, but really wants to, like, do the work so well and be recognized for the work that he's doing because he thinks he's going to get a leg up in some shape or form, but is deeply uncomfortable at the same time, and is going to persist with it with that smile on his face, right? Yeah, I feel like there is something so cutting about it, right down to the fact that, the work is mysterious and important. Like, talking about the alienation of the masses, right? Like, you don't know what you're doing. It's just mysterious and important.
It's calling bullshit on.
Yeah, and you're secretly splitting your allegedly dead wife's subconscious into 25 pieces.
Oh
That's
God.
What you're doing.
Is that what I did when I inputted numbers into Excel this morning? Well,
your work, is it mysterious and important?
I don't think it's that mysterious. But anyway. Yeah. Like cog in the machine, bullshit job.
And buying into an ideology. And like there are like real, I think, cult vibes.
Yeah.
Through and through. The way the office is set up, the way the employees have to buy into it.
Yeah. And that certain things are sacrosanct, right? They can't be touched. They can't be questioned. As much as even I've thought about this, where I think sometimes like corporate cultures are meritocratic, but also there are things that you just can't question. There are certain things that you just can't go against or do because it's going to cost you something very, very fundamental, right? So, and this whole thing of the thing that you said about Helly, who starts off as such a skeptic in the show, but like when she gets the music dance experience or like she gets recognized, she feels happy about it. It just goes to show like how the work environment, like it's so insidious because it's like you you're like, I don't want to enjoy this, but I am, because it's like it's attacking you at your core, which is that you're just a human person that wants to be recognized in some way, right?
Yeah.
And corporations are essentially a place that formalizes that, essentially. And that's why you have like the appraisal process, and you get promoted, and you get like increments and all of those things. That is it's sort of like, I think it inserts like structure in your life. And, it also gives you rewards and increments, and it's like gamifying life essentially, wherein you're like, okay, yeah, if I put in X amount, I'm gonna get this, and I'm gonna get a waffle party, and like blah blah blah.
Right.
And it's so crazy when you think about it. But
I think the two moments in the show that really hit close to home were in season 2. Like, first was the Ortbo.
Oh yeah.
Just the fact that it's called an Ortbo, right?
Outdoor retreat and team building occurrence is what it's the full form.
Yeah. And the moment they said that, I just realized I've been on Ortbos.
Yeah.
Right? And specifically, they're in our world, they're called like strategy meets, right?
Yeah.
Or outbounds.
Or offsites.
Offsites and outbounds and strategy meets and all hands on deck.
Yeah.
But it is this like, so there are theories that I mean, where did the Ortbo take place? Did it take place in a simulated environment, or did it take place, in the actual outdoors? Were they actually camping out? But it is interesting because these are, when in our own workplaces, they are like these simulated environments, right? Where you have to learn how to work together as a team. And it's so like it's structured to a laughable degree. Right. And I've often thought about, this, and I've like spoken about this with colleagues even, where, I think that there's so much about work that has always confused me, especially the interpersonal dynamic side of things. And that's essentially because, the only way I've been able to make sense of this is that organizations are inherently unnatural social units.
Yeah.
In the sense that all our relationships are contractual, right? And essentially what that means is that if, let's say, there's a personality clash at work, right? If you maybe don't get along with someone in your everyday life, if you met that person, you would probably not interact with them very much.
Yeah.
At the workplace, you are bound to interact with each other. So you have to figure out a way to work with each other. So you need conflict resolution techniques to make sure that there isn't a communication breakdown. And then you have a buzzword to describe this kind of interaction, a buzzword to describe the other kind of interaction, and a step-by-step process for giving and receiving feedback at a biannual, annual basis, so that you get a score for how it is that you do interact. So I feel like, yeah. So I feel like I hadn't, I mean, you need to be taken out to realize just how absurd some of this is sometimes.
Can I just ask, are you your outie right now? Or are you becoming your outie? Because I can feel it. I can feel the elevator ding just happened.
When did it ding? I don't know when it dinged. I want to know.
I think it dinged just about right now.
This is a piece of reflection I need to do to figure out how to ding myself out of work. I guess let's record every day. Yeah.
But with Severance, all of this becomes a little confusing because of the idea of the innie and the outie, and what the innie and the outie represent within the context of this show, right? Like when you and I are talking about our innie and outie, like the innie is the work, like just us who go to work, and then the outie is us outside of work. In this context, the way that I think about the innie and the outie is that, and I think that became more apparent to me, I think in season 2, I don't know if it's outie Mark that says this or innie Mark, but one of them basically remarks that innie Mark is just 2 years old. And I was like, that's a child. Like, that's a young person. That's not 40, how many ever years old outie Mark. And then I started thinking about the idea of like how an innie is sort of like an inner child in a sense. It's also literally a child because it's so new. The innie is so new. But that means that the innie versions or the innies in Severance are a little bit more pure, right? Like they're a little bit more authentic. They're not weighed down as much by life in that they haven't experienced all of that pain and everything that life has thrown at outie Mark. And it's like the most potent when we think about like Helena Helly, right?
Yeah.
Because Helly, the innie, is like defiant, is extremely stubborn and someone who questions authority. And Helena is the complete opposite.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's this idea that like who you are, maybe what you're thinking internally is very, very different from how you're acting in real life, because you have to kind of respond and react to conditioning or the forces at play in your actual life, right? Or whatever it is. But the thing that makes it like interesting here is that like the innies are the ones that are going to work. So it's like this pure, unfettered child has now stepped into a workplace and is buying into things and is doing all of these different things. And that's not what work life is like in the outside world, to the viewer right now. So this is the thing that makes it complex. It's like if your inner child was to go to your office space, in a sense, what would its experience be like? And what would it question? What would it call bullshit on?
I think that's one way of looking at the innie, being like a sort of like untouched, unencumbered version of yourself. But I do think that what my reading of this was closer to, how people want to reinvent themselves at work, right? Like the way in which work is an opportunity. Like,
of course. Yeah.
For those people for whom like work is an escape or work is a source of meaning, it's an opportunity to reinvent yourself. And like both Helena Helly and Dylan do that in different ways. Like for Dylan, it's like he's not able to hold down a job, right? In his outside life. And he is very heartened to hear that his innie is super confident and good at his job.
Yeah.
Right? And in so many cases where your outside life is very turbulent, a lot of people find solace and meaning in work. And I feel like Severance also plays on that, right? Like I think that's the other side of Severance, which is, it makes you think that work is pain. And then it makes you start thinking about, oh my God, is work really meaningful?
Yeah.
And are there things about work that I actually want to preserve or hold dear, that I actually hold dear to myself? Which is the reason why we don't quit. We, as in anyone, doesn't, right? Like, of course, there are financial implications as well. But like, just taking this conversation beyond that very obvious point, which is, the very real like feelings of self-worth and value that you kind of draw. And I know I called all of the relationships contractual. It's like, if I really think about it, I'm like, oh, you know what? I value some of these relationships. I don't want to just let it go. Right. Yeah. So I feel like that's when it transcends workplace comedy, office comedy, and turns into this sort of like philosophical thesis, masquerading as a streaming platform TV show.
Yeah.
Which is why we're still talking about it.
Yeah. Yeah. But the thing that's at, like, there's so much that's at stake.
Yeah.
Or rather, it's the reason why I think about the idea of like, you're saying reinvention or someone wanting to start over. I'm thinking about inner child. Sure, that's one thing. But I'm also thinking about like the idea of like a rebirth.
Yeah.
Like, and the innie is a rebirth, and it's a whole net new being. And like and it's like, what would that version of yourself be? And would you be so like, and this particular innie, like, they don't really know why they're there. Like that's the question of like, what am I doing, why am I doing it, is so much more potent for them, because there's no real, like, they woke up and they were 40 years old and they were in this like well-lit workplace. And why? What am I
and
doing?
they don't have a life, right? Like
Yeah.
they only wonder about it, or they
Exactly.
in wellness sessions
Yeah.
are told.
Like when Mark comes in and then Dylan is like, I think your outie drank last night or something, because I can smell alcohol on you. You look hungover, or all of those things.
Yeah, but Marcus doesn't need to be weighed down by any of that. But yeah, I think we can like move on to what makes this show unique, right? So like we've spoken about work life, and the thing that drew people in. But I think another theme that this episode is going to focus on is Severance as, what makes Severance the show of the 2020s, right? Because just for, for our listeners to know that this episode was going to be a very different one when we first thought of it. Like we were, the original idea for this episode was, is there any new TV show that can be anybody's favorite TV show? Like our creators and writers making new favorite shows for people, because we found that everybody's favorite show is like 15 years old, 10 years old, 20 years old. And, at least when we think of favorite shows, we think about, okay, are you invested in the characters? Is this something you want to keep going back to? Is there a feeling of, coming back home when you're switching it on? Is it something that's comforting to you? Do you want to watch it again and again?
Yeah.
And I, thought that let's really talk about the state of TV in the 2020s. And then came the Severance finale, and I realized, what, that question is no longer relevant.
Yeah.
Because Severance checks all of those boxes somehow.
Yeah. And it's amazing to me that this is the show that checks all of those boxes. Like, it's not some like sitcom. Do you know what I mean? And there are moments when there's a sitcom-like quality to the show. It's not a sitcom, but there is a sitcom-like quality. But this is a fundamentally absurdist, David Lynch-inspired, heavy show, deeply philosophical show. But at the same time, I feel like I'm already ready to watch it again. It has that rewatchable quality. Like, I really want to go back and watch it again and again and again. And it's not just to unpack more themes, or not just to, deep dive into it, but simply because I would find it comforting to watch it again. And there's something about
all you jaded office goers. Do you know that in Select City there is apparently like some sort of massage at like those chair massages that people offer, and one of them is called an office worker massage.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
yeah. Sorry, you were saying.
No, I agree with you. I think, Severance has made me think so much. It's made me think about like, what is comedy? Like what is a sitcom? What do people laugh at? Because things that are supposed to be funny are not funny to me anymore. Like I will watch new age like comedy movies, rom-coms, and not find them funny whatsoever. SNL is not doing it for me these days. And lots of stand-up, I'm just watching it, looking at it, and wondering to myself, like, at what point do we laugh? And somehow this show, which is so like meticulous in its framing, in its transitions from one shot to the next, and the ultra close-ups and the lighting and the colors, has made me laugh out loud several times. And just by shining a light more effectively on the absurdities of real lives that we lead than any other stand-up comedian is doing right now.
I was just going to say that the thing that's lacking from other comedies or like stand-up comedy is that like it's often a commentary on like things that are happening online. That's something that I've started to find, which is just like, this one tweeted this and then this is what happened. Or it's like a commentary on like whatever is transpiring online. Like this conversation is happening and I am responding or reacting to it. Or I'm so pissed off about that or whatever. Yeah. But comedy originally has always been observational. It's like you are viewing or looking at life as it's unfolding and you're thinking, that's pretty fucking funny. And that's what Severance is essentially doing. It's looking at the workplace and being like, all of these interactions, they're so absurd and that's what makes them funny. And I really think, like, I can't help, I always think about Milchick's dance, but like, like it's so insane because they go with that and they just run with it. And they're like, how can we make this even more absurd?
Yeah.
And to me, like, that is truly like the beauty of the show. Yeah. But I think the thing that like for me makes this the show of the 2020s is the fact that it has introduced this wholly new and original idea that we were just talking about, which is the innie and the outie, and the way in which it's introduced it. We're already dissecting it and thinking about it from the perspective of our own lives, where it's like, oh, what would be my innie be like? Or I'm my innie now because I'm at work or whatever. But I think that this is an idea that can, like, it's going to go a long way. Like, it's not existed before this.
It must be said that Severance is not an adaptation. It's not based on a book. It's not based on any kind of IP. It's an original idea that was born out of the brains of the writer and the director. And it is a wholly new world, as you said. Yeah. And they've done a wealth of world building, a wealth of lore making, myth making, and contextualization of the characters in it. And I feel like we are in a moment where TV shows have become so focused with this whole idea of prestige TV, of like event-based TV. Like, what can we turn into that weekly ritual of people tuning in and then going online to talk about things, right? And more than anything else, these TV shows are like emphasizing cinematography and vibes over actual stories, right? I don't know if you watched White Lotus, but that is my stock example of a TV show that really banks on online discourse, quote unquote discourse and virality, and does nothing in terms of plot. Okay. Absolutely nothing. I watched only the first episode of the third season and I didn't watch the rest of it. And then I watched the finale day before yesterday. And you know what? I don't think not watching the middle 6 episodes affected my viewing experience whatsoever.
Yeah.
Okay? Because it was that thin in terms of plot, that thin in terms of what it was trying to give the viewer. So I think one place that I think what I feel about Severance is that it is a fan first and story first show.
Yeah.
And I think that the relationship that Severance has with its viewers can only be described as loving, according to me. Like it truly cares about the fan experience in a way that I deeply appreciate. But yeah, what do you think is unique about this relationship that Severance has with viewers?
I think, when you were talking about like how it's such a expansive show, at this point you're like, which direction is it going to go in? Because there are 1,000 ways it can go. But the fact that it's done, this world building is rooted in like modern times is the thing that's truly, truly amazing to me, because every other show that I have like watched, which is like this, is either extremely futuristic or it is rooted in history in some way.
Yeah.
And Severance to me is a show of its time. Like a lot of the themes in Severance, I feel like are better understood purely by living and existing in this current world. Like I was telling you this the other day, which is I wonder how like historians in the future are going to like interpret this show. Like, because there are so many like cultural nuances that are, you know, like that are so inherent and a part of the show. Like even the whole idea of like, of course, work we've discussed, but like the cultish quality of like this corporation and how much it mirrors like even things like Scientology and things you can't escape it, right? Like those themes, it's so potent, it's so alive. To me, I think it does a great honor to its viewers by being like, look, we see the world as it is.
Yeah.
And we find it to be interesting, absurd, funny. We're going to write this story and imagine truly, and we're not going to oversimplify it for you.
Yeah.
And you can sit and interpret it the way that you want to. But also at the same time, we're going to give you what you want. Like it has struck like this delicate balance. I'm like, I am just amazed how they've done that. Where they're like, you know, it's not so obscure where like you as a viewer, you're like, what the hell is happening? I don't get it.
Yeah.
Like, but it, you know, every single episode, something is happening. The plot is moving forward.
Yes.
But you leave every single episode with like 14 theories, which is insane. That's insane. Like that is the ultimate act of love, the ultimate act of service when it comes to storytelling.
And I think they fully embraced this whole 2020s trend of rampant fan theories online.
Yeah.
Right? And they want to fuel it. They're like, we love that our fans do this. We want our fans to think more. And we want them to come up with theories. And you know what? They've woven this fan expectation into the way they write the stories. Because cliffhangers are not cliffhangers for fucking 3 seasons. Okay? They're cliffhangers for 2 episodes or 3 episodes. And it's like so much plot happens in each episode. And I cannot tell you the number of times in season 2 that I asked myself a question that was answered in the next episode.
Yeah.
Right? I remember in the middle of season 2 being like, hey, what was up with that, that graphic of that karate chop or whatever that Dylan stole?
Yeah.
What was the deal? What was the point? And then lo and behold, you have season 2, episode 7, where Gemma is talking about this Buddhist principle. And I'm like, okay, are you listening to me?
Yeah.
Are you listening to me as I ask these questions? Like, because I feel like that can only be an act of love, right? To think about what the fans must be thinking, to think about the impact that it'll have on them. Even the decision in the final episode of season 2, I don't know, is it the best episode ever created?
Amazing. It's just to
give this episode an Oscar.
Yeah.
It's the best movie of
Truly.
2025.
Yeah.
But even the decision that we won't let this be a cliffhanger that, you don't know who Marcus chooses. Like, does he go out to turn into his outie and be with Gemma, be reunited with Gemma for good? Or does he turn back to the person he loves, who is Heliar? And they said, no, we're not going to let this be a cliffhanger, which again, what an act of love for the fans.
Yeah.
I'm getting excited just reliving the memory of that episode and how it ended.
I feel sad that I won't be able to watch it for the first time ever again. That
Yeah.
truly, it was really something else. And I really think that obviously there's no way of predicting which way the fans are going to go when they think about their theories and how they're going to respond to this, this is a appointment viewing as well, right? Like, so, and these episodes are made like months in advance before they're actually released. But the reason why, like, we feel like, does this show know what we were going to think? Is because it's truly because this is a show that is like looking with eyes wide open at our reality and then imagining on top of that. I do not think that there are many shows that do something like that. Like, I really truly I feel like I've watched very limited television that does something like that, like especially currently. And so it's to me that is the beauty of it, like, really.
Yeah. So I think, like, just to go back to that central question, right? Like, what makes this the show of the 2020s? Like, on the one hand, you have just a storytelling technique, a way of shooting, a way of engaging with like online conversations around the show, having this accompanying podcast. Like, the show has a podcast. Like that they just said, here, we just want to give you more. We want to give you more. We really want you to have a good time. So I think and it's coming at the end of a lot of fatigue, I think, in terms of like just a glut of content, a glut of mediocre content, of forgettable content. And at the same time, it has this searing critique of work life, which is doubly relevant after the pandemic, because you no longer have a separation between your work self and your home self, right? And I just feel like it's such a magical instance of a show meeting the moment, right? Which I feel privileged, honestly, to be an adult living through. So it's amazing.
It makes you feel seen. I don't know why. I know why, but it does. It makes a show that makes you feel seen, regardless of who you are or what you do, because it is just that. It is literally holding up a mirror in that way. But and just the fact that I feel like, it hasn't, like, especially in the first season, it didn't really need to, like, it didn't market itself all that much, and Apple TV doesn't really believe in doing a lot of like over the top marketing, and it's like purely word of mouth that the show became what it was. And then I think in season 2 they probably were like, okay, you know what, let's put some budgets on this, let's do this Grand Central activation or whatever it is. But
I absolutely love that they waited for all the episodes of season 2 to be out before like going full blast with the marketing that they're doing. Like, Apple, keep losing money funding creative projects, I cannot appreciate everything about season 2 enough.
I wanted to ask, is there a fan theory that you've come across online that has stuck with you in some way, or like you think is so over the top, or you think is, hey, I feel like it might be true? Can I tell you what mine is?
Isn't that Dylan is a goat? Is that not Dylan? Sorry, no. Devin is a goat. You know that theory?
I think I came across it in some reel, but like I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that is.
What's your favorite theory?
That Cobell is Mark's mother.
My theory was that she's Helly's mother.
Oh,
yeah,
interesting.
Because my theory was that she's Helly's mother or Helena's mother because there's that picture of her with Jane Egan in that yearbook when she got the Wintertide Fellowship. And I just felt like, oh, this is a creepy man who wants to, like, spread his lineage or his seed so that
he has
care can
birthed many in the shadows.
Yeah. So that he can, like, so that care can be reincarnated in his offspring. So I don't know. I was just that's where my mind went. But I've heard about the Mark theory as well. But I don't know why. Helena, James, that whole thing stuck out in my mind. But I think that we've been talking for like 52 minutes about Severance, about what it says about work, what makes it the show of the 2020s. And I think that brings us to like the final piece of this puzzle of why fans have resonated so much, right?
Yeah.
At this particular juncture, which is that central question of the show, which is a question that the show begins with. Season 1, episode 1, first words of dialogue spoken are, who are you? Right? So, given that we're splitting our minds and selves into many, many pieces, and we're living, and we've touched upon this before as well, this whole idea of splintering ourselves.
Yeah.
I feel like that is also one of the more potent themes in the show that make it the perfect show of the 2020s.
It's the most important theme,
Yeah. Who are we?
Who are we in a culture? And again, this is a question that we have been debating so much of. I mean, of course, right? Like,
Yeah.
for centuries now. But in recent times, and I always go back to the pandemic and all of the notions of work that came up, and this idea of rejecting like purpose, and your life's purpose should not be aligned to your work. And I think a lot of people during the pandemic, like, they had this like revelation almost, because we were all raised on this idea that who you are is the work that you do eventually, and then you end up doing that work and you're like kind of unhappy, and it's like suddenly there was this like this new idea that like actually the work that I do is not who I am. Like, this is not my life's purpose. I've sort of like bought into this idea, and now this is not who I am. And I feel like, to me, I really feel like this show sort of stems there, and then it sort of like evolves with the time, and then also like obviously it's like pushing its own ideas. But I think in this world that we live in, this like hyper capitalistic world where who you can be can be like sort of the badges that you wear, or the labels that you put on.
Yeah.
It tells you, or it forces you to be like, no, strip all of that away and really ask yourself, who are you? And then it presents this idea of like severance and it's like, think about it in that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think in addition to that, and I feel like you and I come at this question a little differently, where for me, the question of who are you and who are you really is not really a question that can be answered, right?
Of course.
Because there's nothing to say that who you truly are is the person outside of work, because we are performing in many different parts of our lives, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I think this whole idea of like a splintered self, it's not just work and life, right? We're different people with our parents, we're different people with different friend groups, you're different people with your school friends, and you're different people with your college friends, right? And you're different people with your colleagues. And like in our previous episode, we were talking about social media and the performance of a life that we are doing online. So now we have an online self, and every person has a mini audience and a stage on which they are performing, right? So this idea of who we are and ourselves and the way in which we're marketing ourselves and performing ourselves it's on steroids right now, right? Because there was some version of this at like for centuries, as long as like human social life has existed. Like, don't want to get Shakespearean, but he did say that all the world's a stage, right? And all men and women merely players, and one man in his life plays many parts, right?
Yeah.
So this is this dude in the 15th and 16th century playing on this idea of us playing different parts in different parts of our lives. But I feel like the structure of our life right now, whether it is work, whether it is social media, it's demanding this multiplication of yourself.
Yeah.
And then this, what you're referring to, this idea of that more grounded self who you can come back to, that kind of gets lost.
Yeah.
And I don't know how, like the longer I work and the longer I'm on social media, it's difficult for me to answer that question. Like, who is the person speaking into this microphone, and who is the person who is going to take a shower and be someone else after this, right?
And the fact that we often, it's how adept we become at sort of like performing these different roles, and we don't realize how often they can be in conflict with one another. And that scene that the finale of season 2 opens with, where like Innie Mark is talking to Outie Mark, is to me, I still have no words, because I was just like, oh my God, this is like two versions of the same person talking to each other, and they're in conflict with each other. The underlying assumption was that they would be aligned, but they're not. Right?
Yeah.
And that is really fascinating. That the fact is, you perform all these different selves, and they become true to you in some sense and intrinsic, because who you are is also a product of your experience.
Yeah.
And if all of these different selves are, in a sense, having different experiences, or are even finding themselves reacting to experiences in different ways, they're bound to be in conflict with one another. And we don't even think about our own existence in that way. And this show truly unpacks that. I was like, I can't. What is this? What am I viewing right now?
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. And what was so interesting is, I think like the way Adam Scott plays both characters is so expertly done. Like you really truly believe, right? Like these are two different people. And in an interview, he got asked like, what's your approach to playing Innie Mark versus Outie Mark? And he said, I just think about how, like, what is Innie Mark more like? And he's a little more uncertain. So he just has like a higher register, and like Outie Mark, I think of myself like, when I'm a little more sure of myself. So it's a little lower. And he's like, it's just code switching. And he said it like he barely even like thought that much about it, which I'm sure he thought way more about it. But I'm like, wow, all of us code switch. And every single one of those coded selves is so different from the other. Like it's so easy to just suddenly be like a confident person versus a person who's a little more unsure. And like it's so like context dependent as well, which is that other very like literal rendering of this idea of a different context bringing out a different version of yourself, like Severance being geographically bound, that you need to be on the floor to be severed. So yeah, I think it's just fantastic. I guess that's all I have to say.
There are many words, and yet there are no words. I think the question that I wanted to kind of like end this with, and I feel like this would be an interesting exercise also, because what I found through this conversation is that like so much of how we're unpacking the show is personal. Like we started like with talking about work, and it so quickly became personal, and that is truly the beauty of the show, that it's like you will start by thinking about a certain theme or a character or like the plot, but then it very, very quickly and very swiftly is like, but what do I feel about this? Or like, how does this apply to my life? And I was wondering if you had the opportunity, or like if Lumen came to you and was like, hey, we do this procedure. One, would you do it? And two, what do you think your Innie would be like?
Okay. Answer to the first question, would I do it? No.
I mean, of course. You wouldn't do it.
I would not do it. I would not do it because I think pain and suffering is essential to life. And I do think that work, like I need to have memories of my work. You know what I mean? Because I derive a lot of meaning from it, and self-worth and all of those things. And if I just can't remember what I did for work, as much as it pains me to say this, I would be at a loss for where to derive that meaning from. So I don't think I would do it. I also value my memories. I would want them to stay intact. But if I did have an Innie, what would my innie be like? My innie would be very unhappy. Would my innie be working?
What?
Would my innie be working at Lumen?
I mean, assume that your innie woke up at Lumen. And
Yeah, because I imagine my inner child is exploring creativity constantly and is now confined to this like sterile environment with like white walls and white tube lights, and I would be most unhappy.
yeah.
So which is the reason why I would not do it.
Yeah. You would be helly, basically.
I mean, if I wanted to win the approval of like the family patriarch by undergoing through an invasive procedure just to make a point, like maybe sure.
Yeah. Yeah, well.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, of course I wouldn't get severed. I think that's obvious at this point, but
we like our work.
It's not even that. I think it's as we would there are all of your performative selves that you internalize in some way, but there's still something to you that glues it all together, right?
Yeah.
There's something. And I wouldn't want to lose that. I wouldn't want to split that into two somehow, because I think, and that inner glue would become two inner glues. What I'm talking about is a soul, essentially.
That glue is who you are.
Yeah, that is who you are. That's your soul, for the lack of a better word. And I think your soul finds its expression through these different versions of yourself that you perform with different people or in different contexts and all of that. And then those things, it's like a constant feedback loop. But the nice thing is that you can still retreat into that. And to me, I would never want to let go of that, essentially. But what would my innie be like? Same thing. I think a little bit more just freer, I think.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing in the show, is that all of these innies, they're obedient only up to a certain point, the ones that are obedient. And after that, their curiosity does get the better of them. There's nothing, what are they living for, really, these innies? What are they truly living for? And in that particular context, they're yeah, okay, let's find out what this organization is all about. And I want to know more about who I am on the outside. And it's so interesting that in this show, the innies want to know who they are on the outside, but the outies, or is it a commentary on the fact that we should try and think more about who we are on the inside? I don't know.
No, not just that. And it's the thing that Helly said, they gave us half a life and they think we won't fight for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
In many senses, they have the most self-worth on the inside.
Yeah.
They don't want to let go. They want to fight for it. Yeah. Whatever it is, they want to fight for it.
And I think that is what my innie would be, not conditioned just yet to be a certain way. And so I think that's nice. Yeah. That's a nice idea. And it's also this has given me, I really honestly think that this innie outie thing is a new philosophy for life, because I have found myself thinking about it a lot, where I'm just okay, what would my innie think? I have started thinking this.
I also do that. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's gonna stay with me, and I'm that's when I'm equating innie to inner child in a sense. But I'm okay, this is such a potent idea that you've put out there. It's not going away anytime soon at all.
Yeah. No, I tell myself the same thing. I'm still my outie because I haven't showered. No, wait, my innie. I'm still my innie.
You're your innie, yeah.
Yeah. But okay. Severance. The work is mysterious and important. And also there are goats. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening. See you later. Thanks so much for listening. Thinking People podcast is hosted by Sanaya, Chandar and Ketaki Sharma. Our producer for this episode is Sourav Das.
You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your audio content. Be sure to follow us at Thinking People Pod on Twitter or X and at Thinking People Pod on Instagram. If you'd like to get in touch, write to us at thinkingpeoplepodcast@gmail.com.
Stay tuned for our next episode. Bye.